Hello.
Hello.
Hey there, how's everybody doing?
You're doing great. How are you?
Great.
Good. All right, welcome. Welcome to our monthly investors mastermind. I will get us started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce our speakers today, and I'm going to let y'all take the floor. We have Rudiger Wenzel and Lakeisha Knight, and we started this with the intention of you, the agents, really taking it over eventually. And we also started it with the intention of doing it at least once a month. Rudiger and I were talking about maybe not having one in July as a break and picking back up in August. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Let's hear from our speakers first. And is it Rudiger and Lakeisha, does the order that y'all go in matter?
Not to me, Clark. I'm open.
Yeah,
Okay.
It also doesn't matter to me.
All right, well, Rudiger, let's start with you. You're you're at the top of my screen in the left-hand corner. I'm staring right at you. I'm gonna let you go first. Introduce yourself, please. Tell us how long you've been in real estate. And then I'm gonna make sure that at around 125, we kind of move over to Lakeisha, and then we'll hear from her, and then we'll save some time for questions at the end.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, I've actually kind of started in real estate, I would say in 1988 in Germany, because, even as a student, it was easier to buy a property than it was to rent. And that's how I really started getting into real estate. And then, later on when I moved to the US, the property there became a rental. Then I bought some investment properties. So I've been doing this for a long time, but never full time. And I've been with Keller Williams First Atlanta for 2 years. So realtor for 2 years, investor for a long time.
Share with us a little bit about your case study.
Yeah, so I have actually prepared 2 case studies to kind of contrast a good and a bad situation. And I can just, take over the screen and share, I guess. Let me see. I need your permission, or
if y'all have questions in between, just unmute yourself and ask, and I'm sure Rudiger will be happy to answer.
yeah. Somehow it's not sharing the presentation. Let's see. It says you're sharing, but are you seeing it? Okay, all right, good. So I've prepared two case studies that are a bit dated, but hopefully you'll get something out of them. The first one is the address is in both the addresses are in Washington State, because that's where I lived when I invested there. So if you look at just the Remind history of it, you will see that I bought this investment in 2005 for $210,000, and then I sold it in 2007 for $292,000, and that looks pretty awesome. But so what's the real story here? What was the actual profit? How did it go? So let's dive a little bit into that. The house itself is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 2,000 square feet, built in 1989, a nice house. On the left side, you see the map. On the top of the screen is Seattle. On the bottom of the screen is Tacoma. Kind of in the center of it is the SeaTac airport. And next to Seattle is Bellevue across Lake Washington. That's where I lived. So drive time about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, to get to the house. So how did I buy it? I was part of an investor group that specialized on foreclosures, and a lot of them were bought at auctions. And so that foreclosure group, that was the investor group, they kind of provided information that was kind of formatted like a listing, and it had information. They actually ran title on those things and had all the information. They had CMAs. And so that's how I, went to auction with that information. This is the actual slip of how I bought that thing for $210,700. And I used a hard money lender. So that investor group also had a money lending branch. And so they would actually come with cashier's check to the auction. And if I wanted to bid on something I'd won the bid, they just gave me the checks. I had my own check of $50,000, but the rest was provided by that investor group. And then that was kind of recorded on the title the next day as a note. So that's how I bought it in August 2005. Now that hard money is quite expensive. So there was a loan fee of 4%, $6,000 just to get the loan. The annual interest is 12%, but they had an incentive for us to pay it off quickly. So if you paid it off within 30 days, you only paid half of that loan fee, only 2%. But it is an expensive loan. So the plan was, to fix up the property. It was mostly cosmetic fixes, and then sell it as a lease option. So meaning somebody moves in there, leases it first, and has the option to buy, but it's kind of somebody who is serious, who actually wants to buy it. In terms of repairs, like I said, there wasn't that much to be done. The deck was completely redone. That's it. Good price for today's prices. New appliances, a little bit of carpet, not the whole house, some landscaping, and then a lot of miscellaneous items. So repairs were about $9,500, really not that much. So then immediately I applied for a regular mortgage. I got a mortgage of $176,000, 20% loan to value, no mortgage insurance. I only had to bring $448 cash at closing. At that point, because of a non-owner occupied loan, 6.2% interest, and I took an interest-only loan, and it ended up being $900 per month, the payment. And I closed it on September 1st, which was just in time to pay off that hard money within the 30-day window. Before I leased the property, I had other costs. So, I drove about 2,000 miles back and forth on weekends and evenings to fix up the property. And that adds up to about $900 at that time. That foreclosure group actually charged an auction fee also. That's for all their services, and the hard money cost me a total of $5,000. The refi and other fees ended up being, all of that ended up being $18,000 before it was actually leased. Then I put it on the market for $277, and the typical thing was you would add something then for somebody who wants the lease option, because the assumption is prices go up, so they get the option to buy it at a higher price. So the option, and that was it looked like a very informal option agreement on the right. It's just one page and it has all the terms. So the option price was $292, an option fee of $5,600. They had the option to buy between 12 and 24 months. They paid $1,650 rent per month. And of that, they would get a credit back of $243 for every payment they made on time, which then they could use as part of their down payment when they bought it. And so I started renting this out in February 2006. So yeah, it took me a long time to fix up that house because I had a full-time job. But I leased it. And that's the closing statement. It has all the numbers on there. And then, that's the closing from when the lease was, the option was actually executed. So October 2007, 18 months later, those tenants actually exercised the option. They got their prepaid items back. They got their deposit back. And so it closed on that date. So while that property was renting, I had other costs. I paid interest, $22,000. I paid property taxes, insurance, and all that. So another $28,000 in expenses while it was rented. So when we put it all together, I sold it for $292 and I received $30,000 in rent. What did I have to pay? The purchase price, the renovation, the pre-leasing cost, the other costs that while it was leased. I had to give back the rent credit, and I had a total, between the first financing and the second closing, I had like $13,000 in total closing costs. So my profit actually ended up being $40,000. And on a monthly basis, the rent was $1,650. My interest payment, which was interest only, was $916. Taxes about $200 a month. Insurance $55. So I had a positive cash flow of $479 a month, which was really great. And in terms of cash invested, so I paid $50,000 when I purchased. There was the auction fee of $2,600. When I refinanced that loan, I had to bring $448 to the closing, and that paid everything else, like paid those fees for the hard money lender and everything else. I paid $9,500 for the renovation, and I had those pre-lease costs before the other money started coming in. So my high water point in terms of cash that I had in the deal was $68,000. So if you want to look at it as a return on investment of cash invested, cash on cash, I had a 59% return on investment. So this, that for me is pretty much a home run. This is what I would like every investment to look like, and so I'm giving you that example as one that really went well. I'm not sure if you have any questions that are quick before I contrast it to the second one.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So in terms of let's look at it from when you purchased, okay? So when you purchased it, based upon what you were going to buy it for, initially put in, and what you could rent it for, do you know what your rate of return was at that point? In other words, I have investors who say to me, I'm looking for something that will return 8 to 10%. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to calculate if it's going to return 8 to 10% on the purchase side. You see what I'm saying?
I didn't do that for that property because, that was my second, like that type of investment in the US. And I was set on the lease option from the beginning because the margins at the auction were tight, and I wasn't really looking at a long-term rental because I didn't want my cash tied up in there for a long time.
Okay. So you were looking more for the return on the resale, and you weren't really looking on what as long as it was like cash flowing, you were fine. So you weren't looking at that.
I
That was
wasn't really looking
yeah.
at that because I hadn't planned to keep it as a long-term rental.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? Or let me move on to the second deal. So the second deal is kind of the same area. And if you look at Remind history, you will find out that I bought this in 2008 for 260,000. And I sold it sort of in 2013 for 251. So that on its face is already not looking so good. So what happened there? So let me walk you through it. The house, again, very nice house, almost 2,000 square feet, built in 2003. So it was only 5 years old when I bought it. And from the upstairs bedroom, you actually had a view of Mount Rainier. It was beautiful. If I had wanted to live in that area, I would have, liked to own that house myself. And you can see from the map, it's even a little bit further south than the other one. It's actually south of Tacoma. So it was over an hour drive from where I live, which in this case didn't matter that much because this was a different way of doing the deal. So that was essentially the divvy concept. So I didn't buy it at auction. There was an agent that had some buyers who were close to qualifying for a mortgage, but not quite. And so they wanted to buy. They also wanted to do the lease option. So they actually selected the home. They found the home. They wanted to buy it. And then the agent was part of the investor group, and he looked for investors to buy it for them. And then the investor would buy it, lease option it to the buyer, and the buyer would, sign up to buy it at the predetermined price. So the way that looked like in numbers was, okay, I bought it for 260 on the market. I put 10% down, financed 90%. The option price was a 10% premium over the purchase price, 286. Option fee, 22.99. And again, same term, 12 to 24 months. So they had to stay there at least 12 months. And then in the second year, they had the option to buy it. So on the monthly cash flow side, the way it looks like was the rent was $22.99. Principal and interest of the loan that I got was $1,500. There was mortgage insurance because I only put 10% down, taxes, insurance, and small homeowner association. So I had a cash flow of $226 a month. And of that, again, they would get a small credit of $115 back if they made payments on time, which they could add to their down payment when they finally bought it. So from that difference in cash flow, if they bought after 18 months, I would have had another $2,000 in extra income. And so the projected profit for that whole deal was $28,000 minus whatever I have in closing costs. And the closing costs weren't that much because when I bought it, I was the buyer, so the seller paid the agent. And because it was an option agreement, there was no agent or marketing involved. It would have just been the buyer. And so me as a seller, the closing costs would have been very little. So that was the idea. And so what happened? Well, the situation was the market in that area had actually gone down significantly in 2007, and it looked like it pretty much stabilized. So kind of some people expected that it would just, slowly start getting better. And that didn't happen. So there was kind of a second drop in prices. So when the tenant eventually realized that option price is completely out of reach, prices are still dropping, they just decided to move out, just leave, even though they had a 2-year lease agreement. The other thing that happened, even the rents went down. And then, so now that I had to kind of try to rent it on the regular rent market, I also didn't get that extra payment that they made that would be credited back to them for the lease option. And because it was over an hour away and I would get random tenants that I didn't know, I needed a management company. So add all this together. So here's the new reality. The rent that I was actually able to get at that point was $1,500 a month. I had a management fee, I had principal interest, all the other stuff, and I ended up having a deficit of $700 a month. All right, so in 2009, I attempted to refinance, And for some reason, some loan officer thought they could get a value and get me out of mortgage insurance, and it would have reduced my deficit to 270 a month. But what really happened was appraisal came in lower, EMI could not be removed, and I was not anywhere near the improvement in monthly cash flow, and the whole closing would have cost a couple $1,000s. So I just didn't do it. So then in 2011, I did refinance. I still had mortgage insurance, but I refinanced at a lower amount. I pretty much zero at closing I had to bring. And for some reason, yeah, taxes had gone down a little bit. Insurance had, I think, had gone down. So I was able to reduce my deficit, but not to zero and not really to a great amount. So well, that was in June 2011. And I had other projects going on. And so what happened was they were unable to remove the mortgage insurance, and I just couldn't sustain the deficits. So I stopped making mortgage payments in March 2012. And then from July 2012, a problem that happened was the pre-foreclosure on that home, because I had stopped making payments, the pre-foreclosure was public. And so the management company had really had a hard time finding any tenants with a pre-foreclosure on the record on that home, because tenants couldn't be sure that they wouldn't be like foreclosed on and evicted. And so it was really a drama. So the inevitable happened a year later, in June 2013. That's the notice of foreclosure that it sold at auction. So I bought my first house at auction. I lost the second one at auction. Oops. So here's the result of that second investment. Well, the house was gone, so I didn't get anything for it. I did get, that loan balance at the time of 225 was wiped out. I had 31,000 in arrears and fees that had accumulated that were wiped out. I still had got to keep that option fee. And then I had lease payments from the original tenants, and I had rent payments for the remaining time. So that's all the money I got. And then on the lower half, you see what I invested, 260. When the first tenant moved out, before the second one, I did have to spend about 1,000 to clean it up. And then I had some other expenses while renting, and I made $92,000 in payments to the lenders during the whole time. And in closing costs from the original purchase and the refinance was about $10,000 in closing costs. So that whole project resulted in a loss of $31,000. So that's how that second one went. And now here's the sad truth. By June 2012, when I really kind of stopped making mortgage payments and the pre-foreclosure started, I had accumulated deficit of $29,000 in addition to the $26,000 that I had initially, paid as a down payment. Now assume the rents had stayed at $1,500. Assume the loan had stayed at 5.3%, and my monthly deficit had stayed at $378, and I had just eaten that deficit continuously. Well, it turns out by June 2018, 6 years later, the home was worth about $350,000. So if you do the math then, by then I would have accumulated a total deficit of 56,000 plus the 26 that I had originally invested. No, what is that? I think that includes it. And if I had sold it on the market then in 2018, I would have kind of broke even. So I just didn't have the resources to sustain that deficit. Otherwise, if I'd held the property long enough, I would have come out even in 2018. And if I look at the current value, I haven't run comps, I just looked at like Zillow, Remine, and some other, the valuation kind of varies between 478 and 550 as of yesterday. So let's average that to 500,000. If I had kept it until today, even with the same rent, which definitely has gone up, I have 300,000 equity in that house if I had kept it. So here are kind of the lessons learned from that. Yeah, really try to buy at a discount if you are planning to kind of sell after a few years, and plan for market fluctuations. It just can happen. The purchase price can go up and down, and rents even can go up and down. That was one thing that I really didn't think would happen. I thought the opposite, that when people lost their homes in their foreclosure wave, that a lot of people would be looking to rent and that rents would go up. Instead, they went down in that area. And then really, really ensure that even in the worst case scenario, you have positive cash flow. So you don't run out of money, because in the long run, things will work out. So don't over leverage. That was another thing that I think did wrong in the second investment. I only put 10% down. I had to pay mortgage insurance. Everything was over leveraged. It would have been great in terms of return on investment if it all worked out. But if anything goes wrong, you're so leveraged. I lost more than I invested, and that's because of the leverage. My advice would also be, don't buy for the medium term. So either do the short-term flips, because you can see what the market's going to do the next 3 months. You buy something, you fix it up, you flip it. You kind of know what the market is like. Or you buy for the long term, because after 10, 12 years, things will work themselves out. But this thing of keeping things for 2 to 5 years is just risky, because you don't know what the market is doing, and if you need to get out of the deal, you may just be at a low in the market. So I personally would avoid the medium-term investments. Then don't trust somebody else's numbers, because this thing of the market had bottomed out, and that math on that second deal, how the return would be, that's somebody who kind of sold this to me, and I bought into it. And the last thing, don't assume things can't get worse. There's always something that can happen to make things worse. And maybe I should add on the do side, do believe in the long-term value of real estate. So that would be my 2 case studies, and go ahead and ask me any other questions, or let me know what you think. Wow, it's 1:26. I did it on time.
Nice. Who has questions for Rudiger?
I have questions.
Sure.
And this is either for Rudy or for everybody else. I mean, I think that was a fantastic analysis, really. And I think it's important to see that, sometimes, like you said, it looks good or it doesn't look good, but you have to look behind the story, because people very often forget about what the carry costs are, and they never add that in. Well, I bought it for this and I sold it for this. Yeah, but it cost you $25,000 a year to carry, and you're not including that. But my question is really this, and I'd like to hear everybody's opinions on this in addition to Rudy. I'm risk averse, right? But I like to be an investor. I look at the market now, and I think that the values are extremely high. I mean, not even extremely high, like insanely high. Mm-hmm. And I also think that rents are very, very high. So when you say, how can things change? It's hard for me to think that they're going to keep going up, although I will be honest, I was wrong 2 years ago, they kept going up. Right. 3 years ago, they kept going up. 4 years ago, but at some point, it just seems unsustainable. So in this market, what do you all think about not a flip, but are you saying that for a buy and hold, we're really thinking about if it's good for 10 years? Or what do you all think about that in terms of the best investment now? Would you think it's going to be a flip? It's going to be a buy and hold, or what are you all looking at? Anybody?
Hey, I'll speak on guys. I'm Lakeisha Knight. I am an investor, of course. I've done both buy and holds as well as flips. And to be honest with you, I don't think, for me as an investor, I don't think that this market is the market situated for a flip. Unless you just find a really, really great deal, which I'm not going to say they're not out here, but they have to be off market. If you're just milling through the MLS like every other investor, like every other agent that's working with someone looking for a good deal, you're not going to find it. Everything's at the top of the market right now. So and this kind of leads into my presentation, what I was going to talk about. You just kind of have to look for deals where they kind of find you. Like every listing appointment is an opportunity for you. And that's how you should look at it. You should look at it like, okay, going in, what is this person's, what are they looking to make off of the sale if they want to sell their home? What are they willing to do? What are they willing to leave as is? And what number works for both of us? What the comps look like. So you should be looking at those opportunities when you're going to these listing appointments. You should be thinking about, is this a good deal for me to get into? So we shouldn't always go in with the mindset of, I'm going to list. It might be an opportunity for you to purchase.
I have a question. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. I'm working with some clients from out of town. One is from Chicago, the other one's from California, and I have another one from Virginia. And I purchased one new development for one of them, which is for $497. It's right by Truist Bank. And we are hoping to, this is a cash buyer, of course, and they're buying this to keep. And we're hoping to get $3,500. This is a 2,300 square feet townhouse, very nicely built. It's just a new development. And we're thinking about, maybe getting a $3,500 rent per month. However, there's a big new development apartment buildings over there. And we're thinking, they're going to be they're about 1,100 square feet or less. And the 2 bedrooms are going for 2,200. So we're putting 2 and 2 together and hoping that we're going to, get 3,500. Of course, I'm not predicting anything for my clients because the prices are very new. But what do you think about this?
How much did you say that you bought it for? That they're buying it for?
Well, we started with $497 and the prices went up right before we were just putting in the earnest money. So it's coming to $447, and then we bought it for $497.
And it's a townhouse?
It's a townhouse.
And they allow
It's reserved
rentals?
at Wildwood.
And they allow rentals?
They allow rentals. They allow 10% rentals, and we're the first investors. So.
And how many bedrooms is it?
This one has 3.
To me, this is the hard part. Is when I'm looking for an investor, you have to first find a property and then have to try to figure out what they're going to be able to rent it for. And there's no rental history here. So for me, that would be a very difficult thing to estimate. Does anyone else have an opinion on that?
Well, just the raw numbers. You have a $500,000 investment and you have 3,500 rent. That's 7%. So then you take off. You said it's a cash deal. I don't know if they're going to finance it eventually. So then there's a non-owner occupied loan expense. You probably have an HOA, and then you have taxes and insurance. So if you take all that off, you're probably looking at 5% return on investment. So the question is that good enough? If that's what they're after, if they think they can sell it in 5 years for 700,000, that may or may not work out, as we've seen.
This one I was okay with, because the HOAs is very low. It's like $250 per month.
Is it fee simple? No.
Huh?
Is it fee simple? Or
no, it's not fee simple. It's townhouse. It's a townhouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just say, as a complete and total novice in being an investor, but being a realtor, that there are tons of townhouses. All they're building right now are townhouses, and there's tons of new construction up and down Are we talking about where the stadium is, Holly?
Excuse me?
Where the stadium, Brave Stadium is?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, like
This is- yeah.
you could, I mean, I would look at the school district and figure out, is it Cobb, is it Fulton, does it feed into this one, does it feed into that one? And I think you'll be able to put some pretty decent comps together, give or take a few years.
Right, but the other investor that I have, she's looking into resales, and she's looking into good school districts. She's looking into Walton. And of course, everything that we put an offer on, it escalates. We're like looking at $419,000, and then, the house goes for 480. So I mean, that is basically, I don't know when or how are we going to, get, anything that, they're looking at the base prices. I mean, we call it base price, asking price right now. And, they go for like 50 to sometimes, $80,000 more than, what they're asked for. The list.
Lisa, is that your presentation? How to get the off-market deals?
The what? I'm sorry, I don't know why I can't hear you, everybody.
No, I'm just asking
yeah,
if that's
exactly.
Lisa is talking about to not compete with, how not to compete with other
So,
buyers,
yeah,
right?
let's
Definitely my take on.
excuse me, let's go ahead and segue over to you, Lakeisha, and see if you can't answer Holly's question a little bit and then give us your examples.
Okay. Again, guys, I'm Lakeisha Knight. I've been investing probably about 10 years now. I've been a licensed realtor for the past 8 years. I've flipped, I've done buy and holds, wholesaling, and also co-living, which is what I'm currently working on now. But Holly, definitely my best advice, of course, I wouldn't tell a client this, but to be honest with you, this is not the best market for an investor to purchase in, because like you were seeing, they're going to be at the top of the market with any purchase that they make. There are going to be 20 other investors that are clamming after the same property, which is going to make their purchase price go up. You look for, generally, me personally, when I purchase homes, look for a 10% I'm sorry, a 1% cap rate at minimum if I'm purchasing a home. So if they're paying, basically, you said $497 for it, that's $500,000. So I would be looking for a cash flow of at least $5,000 a month, which doesn't sound like you're quite there with the numbers.
She wants to purchase something for her daughter, basically, just to leave it there, just have it as a rental, hopefully, the prices are going to go up. And, and that's me. I've talked to her about that. She says, as long as I go even, I'm fine, that I don't have to add anything to it, just because the price of the land is going to go up. So that's what she's thinking. But still, I understand your point. Definitely, I do. But I think at the same time, I think that the prices are establishing. They're not going to go down.
Oh, they're definitely not going down, because the price continues to go up, and building, materials continue to go up. So price not going down at all.
Wait. Can we talk about that? Are you saying prices are never going to go down, or they're just not going to go down the next 3 months?
I just don't think it'll go down anytime soon.
Right.
I think
do you remember 2008?
I do remember.
That was different.
But that was totally different. The way they were lending, the way they were doing things in our industry was totally different than
That was different, but now we have supply chain issues. So when that gets straightened out, all of a sudden it doesn't cost 30% more for lumber. You don't think that'll...
But you think
equity, people have equity.
But do you think the builders go down?
Will they have equity if prices go down?
But do you think the builders are going to go down on their prices just because the cost of lumber went down?
No, not even that. They're going up, actually. They're going up. The prices are,
You think
they're
they'll
not
never
going
come
down.
down, or you think they just won't come
This
down?
this is different. This is not mortgage fraud.
Now forget the
2008.
mortgage. Do you think prices will never come down and they'll always go up, or are you saying they just aren't going to come down? And
I think these are the new prices. These prices are going to
Forever.
establish for, yes, I don't think they're going to go down. No.
Well, and I think it'll be regional. I mean, as long as we have a net influx of people into the Atlanta metro area, prices will not go down.
Right.
Prices in New York might drop because people are leaving.
what if interest rates double? Do you think prices will come down?
The prices are going to establish at this point. I don't
No matter
think
what
that-
interest rates do.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say
Okay.
is that we're not even going by appraisers anymore. Appraisers are just, they don't value their opinion anymore. So we're just, the prices are going up. So the next appraiser is going to, have a very easy time, just, appraising that house at the price that has not been appraised previously. So that's how the prices are establishing. And the price of labor and construction is not going down.
Can I say something?
It's based on inflation and coming from where I'm from, when the prices are going up based on inflation, meaning that the government is printing money and everything is just going up. The groceries going up, you want to go buy, anything that it went up. So I don't see that the prices are going down like that. This is, history to me.
Let me say some comment real quick, because I lived through that too, Alita. And there were people at the time who said prices are only going to keep going up. Just go rent the movie The Big Short, right?
Right.
So, however, when y'all listen to smart people and you tell me who you're listening to, like I think several of y'all have mentioned to me that you have listened to Dave Ramsey's recent comments on the real estate market. And he says to go ahead and buy because he does not foresee prices going down anytime soon. That's not to say there will never be corrections. That's simply to say that he says it's still a good time to buy based on what he knows. And he started from something, lost everything prior to, I think it was, I don't know if it was in the 70s or the 80s or when it was, but he lost everything and then came back in real estate. So that's what Dave Ramsey's saying right now. So I would just quote some of those people and what they're saying, and also say that, Alita's probably right. No market, including the real estate market, has zero corrections. You'll always see corrections, I think. It's just we're not anticipating major price corrections anytime soon.
That's
right. I have a question. For those of you that are thinking that there are going to be corrections, what percentage you think would be corrected?
That's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
My thought was that it's gonna get like stabilized, and then in the future, maybe next year, there's gonna be a correction. But first, prices are gonna be steady, not rising as they are right now. But I'm like, okay, how much correction could buyers foresee? I mean, and they ask me, and I'm like, I really don't know. Some of the buyers ask me, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't think you can tell them that. I mean, no, what I usually tell people is if I had a crystal ball and I knew that, I wouldn't be working for other people. I would just be doing investing.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody knows
Yeah.
that. And
But
that's really outside our area of expertise, to tell you the truth.
One big factor that is maybe balancing and correcting the market is that they're converting the commercial buildings, the commercial high rises into, like, I know that they're doing that in Denver, Colorado right now. They're converting them into residential. So that may, ease down the market a little bit, for people to be able to just, because of the low supply.
Yeah, that's a great point. Rezoning, and
Right.
we can touch on that at
Right.
a later time, because
Right.
we have Lakeisha Knight here today to share with us about her case study.
There you
Okay.
go.
Lakeisha, you are on, girl.
Okay. My case study will be on my Decatur investment. I bought a investment property last summer. Yeah. So, like I was saying, guys, when we are going on these listing appointments, we should always look at the numbers and look at the deal to see if it may be a deal that works for us and our investment portfolio. My exit strategy out of retail, it's going to deal with having multifamily homes, as well as maybe a couple of apartment units, maybe anywhere from 4 to 8 units, 12 units max. So I'm looking at how many doors I can acquire to coincide with my exit strategy. So this deal, I was called, someone I had been marketing to for probably 2 years. They had just been getting my KW newsletters. They called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. I get your newsletters every month. They're so eloquent, well written." I'm like, "Well, thank you." So I go out to the appointment and I look around the house. The house needed minor work. She had a deal with Curbio going, and they give you a budget, and she had maxed out that budget, getting her deck done and some other things that needs to be done to the property. So she didn't have any more repair budget left. I just me eyeballing it because I flip properties from time to time. I
Lakeisha, you're mute.
You're muted. Lakeisha, you're muted.
I don't know what happened. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't press anything. I don't know what happened. But I estimated that me looking around the property probably needed about 7 to 8 grand in repair work. Including the basement and all. It's a 5 bedroom house, 5 bedrooms, 1, 2, 3, 4 baths. So I sat down and I started talking with the homeowner, and she said, "I just want out." And, of course, as being a licensed realtor, I had to share with her the numbers of what the comps are actually going for in her neighborhood. And I shared with her, hey, you know, houses that are completely renovated, that look good, and that are the, queen at the prom, are going for around 175 to 180, give or take. It's in Decatur, Georgia. It's in South DeKalb area. So she said, okay. I said, I may be interested in purchasing this home. She said, okay. Well, I said, well, what do you want to walk away with? Like, how much what would you accept? And she gave me a number. She told me 165. I said, okay, if that's your number, I'm willing to make you an offer for that. So we were all in agreement. I went home, I wrote the contract, and I closed on it. Now, I don't have a pretty synopsis of numbers like Rudiger had. Thanks for showing me up, Rudiger. But I do know my numbers on the property. I purchased it at 165. It's an investment property, so I had to put down 20%. Put me at around $33,000, give or take, for my down payment, and plus my closing costs. So I was in the property completely for around $40,000 purchasing. It ended up needing about $12,000. Well, let me back it up. It actually appraised at 183. And it needed around $12,000 in repair work. So a little bit more than I estimated, but being $4,000 off wasn't too bad for me. So I was in it for around $52,000. Now, I did something different with my property. I'm doing what's called co-living and Airbnb. Because this is a 5 bedroom, 4 bath home, there's a basement apartment that has a 1 bedroom, 1 bath there. Then there are 4 bedrooms in the main home, 2 bedrooms on each level. So in the main house, I am doing what's called co-living. Co-living is basically a fancy word for rooming house with a skirt. Um, I have adults that rent out the rooms. They pay various amounts, ranging from $700 to $850 per room. The master bedroom demands the most because it has its own bathroom. No one has to share. So I get about $850 a month for the master bedroom. And then the other 3 bedrooms are rented between $700 and $800 a month. They share bathrooms and they also share the common space, like the living room and the kitchen. I acquired these tenants, which they're month to month. I acquired these tenants through a property management company that finds tenants that are working professionals that just can't afford or don't want to pay average rent prices. Average rent prices are around about $1,600 a month. Everyone that's leased a bedroom in my property is a working professional. I have a school teacher, I have an electrician, I have one guy that works at Amazon and one that works at FedEx. So they're all working professionals. They pay either bi-weekly or they pay monthly. Upstairs, I make about $3,000 a month. Downstairs, since it's a completely separate entrance and apartment in itself, I do Airbnb out of. The Airbnb, usually I make about $2,000 a month. So that property cash flows me about $5,000 a month. Expenses and overhead run about $1,100 a month, and that's including the mortgage payment of $818 a month, as well as the utilities. So I'm about $1,100 in on utilities, and cash flow is $5,000 a month. So that's how I'm doing I'm looking at alternative and just creative methods of making money on a property. My goal is to acquire at least 5 more of those where I'm cash flowing about $5,000 a month. That will put me at about $25,000 a month in monthly income. And then I can definitely start backing more so away from the retail world. Any questions?
I have a question. When you say it appraised for 183, was that after you put in the 12?
No. That was appraisal cost when I bought the property. I took out a conventional mortgage, and that was the appraisal price.
So I have a question about that, but you told her that after renovations, it would be 175 to 180, but it actually appraised for 183 in its current condition?
Yep, those were the comps that had sold in her neighborhood at that time.
Lakeisha, what's your cost for managing the property? Do you manage it yourself?
I manage it myself. All the tenants pay either via Zelle or PayPal or Cash App. So they pay on time before time. So I manage it myself.
With such a high turnaround, what would you say is your cost? Every time a tenant leaves, do they leave it in great condition, or you have to go put money into each bedroom?
I haven't had any issues. I've only been running it since January. So I haven't had any issues with anyone tearing up anything or having any problems. I did have one guy leave, and I immediately got another person in his place to take over the bedroom. So everybody's been pretty consistent and long-term so far.
And you include utilities within the rent?
Yes. Their utilities are included in the rent. Water averages about $90 to $100 a month. Light bill is total electric, ranges about $135 a month, $140. And cable is about cable internet's about $75 a month.
Okay. Lakeisha, where's this
Thank you.
property?
I'm sorry.
What is the location of this property?
This is in South DeKalb, off of River Road.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Lakeisha, what's the name of the company you use to find your tenants?
This is a company called Smart Rooms. They came up with this concept of co-living, and the guy who started the company actually is branding this to take it nationwide, and he's buying apartment complexes, like rundown apartment complexes in Atlanta. He's completely renovating them, and let's say it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. He's taking it and splitting it and making it into like a 4-bedroom unit, or and maybe like 2 bathrooms. So he's doing amazing things. Now his units and rooms are a little smaller than mine and what I would like, but for a single family residence, it works very well.
Awesome, thanks. You said it's called Smart Move?
Smart Rooms with a Z.
Oh, Smart Rooms with a Z. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Lakeisha. This is Angelique. Thank you. You're giving us a lot to think about. I did want to ask though, when you're renting out rooms, are there certain neighborhoods that won't allow that? Because would it have to be zoned for like a, a boarding house type situation? How does that work?
I purposely buy homes in neighborhoods with no HOA and,
Gotcha.
to avoid issues like that. So I'm able to rent out the rooms. I haven't had any issues with it. So
Awesome. Thanks.
you're welcome.
Lakeisha, I have a question.
Yes.
Has the forbearance affected you, impacted you in any way in your properties?
No, I've had all cash flow, even on my personal home. Airbnb pays the mortgage on my personal home. So no, I have not had any concerns with that.
No
And-
renters that have invoked the forbearance?
No, because I do things a little different. These are month-to-month tenants. There is no lease, and they also sign what's called a pack and pick up release agreement. So if they don't pay, they know they're going to be moved out, and they agree to that upon entry into the property. And that's something the property management company, has them sign in their packet. But I haven't had any issues. Everyone pays every month on time, and like I said, this started in January. So we haven't had any issues.
Do you have other properties that are year leases that maybe that might impact? Or
All my I refuse to do traditional rentals because it just does not make sense to me cash flow wise. I only do Airbnbs on my properties or co-living.
And Lakeisha, what company did you say you use for property management?
Well, I am property managing it myself, but the property management company that found the tenants is called Smart Rooms.
Smart Rooms.
And in order to work with them, do they have to, just think, well, when they find the tenants, do they have to manage the property, or obviously not, right?
Right. They don't have to manage it. I opted to to manage my own property because they wanted to charge, I believe, 15% per room per tenant. And it just didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Do they take care of vetting the tenants, like background checks and all that?
Yes, they do the credit, background checks, work verification.
And they're the ones who
Awesome.
come up with the pack and pick up lease, or no?
Yeah, they came up with that pickup agreement. That's something coined to them.
Lakeisha, could you repeat that pack and pick up agreement? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
It's a document that I said the leasing company came up with. It's called a pack and pick up agreement. Basically, they agree that if they do not pay their rent on time, and if it's not paid by the 2 days after the due date, that they agree that their stuff will be packed up and removed from the property and taken to a safe place. They have a storage unit so they can pick it up.
Oh, thank you. And what's the fee that the Smart Rooms company charges you every time they find a tenant for you?
They charge 1 month's rent plus a $1.99 marketing fee.
Okay, thank you.
all right, y'all, I want to be a good steward of all your time, and we have about 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask one more question of my own just because I'm curious. When forbearance for mortgage holders, mortgagees lifts, whenever the heck that is, right? But eventually I'm assuming the banks want their money, and they start restructuring, recasting, financing loans for people, and they say they're about 6 to 7% of all mortgagees are in forbearance right now. Does anybody anticipate more inventory becoming available when those forbearances are lifted?
I definitely do. I think there are definitely, unfortunately, going to be some people losing their homes or, so much behind on their mortgage payments that they're not going to be able to catch them up, because this has been going on over a year now, and no telling how long some people have been in, forbearance payments. So I definitely see some deals hitting the market. And if you know how to work out creative financing which is something I encourage you guys all to research. Subject to deals, owner financing, you guys can definitely win when that happens.
So we would become the bank and the landlord. Is that what you're saying?
Basically. And owner financing is, of course, creative financing in that you guys negotiate an amount that you give for a down payment, and then, of course, payment arrangements every month for whatever specified mortgage payment that the seller agrees to, or a subject to deal.
You have no idea what you're talking about, girl.
Huh?
You have no idea what you're talking about, girl.
Who doesn't?
It's Lindy.
hello.
I'm kidding. I heard your voice. I had to come in and say hi.
Hey, Lindy, I came by your office yesterday.
Sorry, I missed you.
Oh, my. Always the consummate professional.
Always.
What else,
yeah,
y'all?
owner finance is a good way to skip out on dealing with the hassles of obtaining a mortgage. After my last mortgage, I just said it's really rough when you're self-employed. So I just said I didn't want to go that route anymore. So I'm either looking to do owner finance or subject to deals. So you guys definitely do your research on that and look into getting into those, because this is going to be the market where you guys can take advantage of that.
Yeah, and owner finance is, in my opinion, is a very different scenario from subject to. So owner finance is when the owner pretty much doesn't have a mortgage, so they can be the bank. And subject to is kind of the opposite case, where the owner has a high balance on their mortgage, they're unable to pay it, and you're taking over their mortgage in their terms, and they just give up the house. It's a very different scenario, but both are very advantageous.
I'm sorry, I missed something. Are you saying you like owner financing as the buyer or the seller?
As the buyer.
As buyer.
And what was the second option? It's called subject to?
It's called a subject to deal. Basically, when these homeowners are behind on their mortgage payment, and instead of them losing it, basically you pay up the mortgage payments, catch them up. And normally you give them some type of incentive to move out of the house because you want to use it for rental property. And you're making the payments to the bank every month.
What would you suggest the incentive be?
I'm sorry?
What would you suggest the incentive be for subject to get them?
I'm saying moving costs compensated, or maybe the rental cost at the next property paid for 1 month just to get them settled in and get going. People are not in a financially sound position, so to pay for movers or to pay 1 month's rent is a big incentive for them.
Thank you, Lakeisha. In your opinion, when do you think all of this is going to hit the fan with forbearance ending? Is it the end of the year, you think?
I would say in the next couple of months. I mean, because they just lifted the thing on rentals. What was it? Well, no, I think it's over June 30th. The moratorium on rental property and people being, evicted. Oh, the mortgages are next, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Lakeisha, I have another question for you. It's the subject to deals. Do you basically, how does it work? Do you pay extra to the price of the house, or you just take over the mortgage?
You're just taking over the mortgage payment and getting them caught up.
Okay, so
I think we can do a whole session on this forum.
We can. It's very in depth.
Yep.
Right.
I would suggest that.
Okay.
And I'm not by no means the expert on it. So we definitely need to get someone to come in and kind of just give you guys a scenario and a breakdown of what subject to entails, because it's very intricate. And I have not personally done a subject to deal, but I've definitely been researching and I know how to do them. Just opportunity has not arisen as of yet.
I have one more question, Rudy. Can we just go back to a quick thing that you did when Holly was saying that the price was $497 and she was going to get $3,500? You quickly calculated that was a 7% return. How did you come up with that?
Well, I don't think it's actually 7%. It's like 0.7% per month.
So how did you do it? Do you do 3,500 times 12 and then divide that number by the purchase price?
Yeah, but you know,
Okay.
I generally try to follow the 1% rule, which is like, I think the same thing that Keisha mentioned, you know, 1% of the purchase price in income per month. So I usually look at the monthly and not so much at the annual. But the 1% per month ends up being 12% per year.
Right. Okay.
So sorry, yeah, 7% was misspoken. It was 0.7
No, I
per month.
actually don't know how to, I wanted to make sure I was calculating correctly. So that's why I was just asking.
So it's 0.7% per month, which is 8.4 per year. Sorry, I got it wrong.
No, I'm glad to know how to do that. Make sure I was calculating correctly.
Well, thank you, Rudiger and Lakeisha. We so appreciate you being on the call, and everybody else. Put on your calendars for Thursday, August the 5th at 1 p.m. Tentatively, I think that's when we're going to regroup. And we'll have some super awesome content. I thank you for just leading us at a really, really honest to goodness high level today. With one photobomb exclusion. It was an awesome discussion. I'm teasing. But yeah, so I'm glad y'all came. Thank you so much, Rudiger. Thank you, Lakeisha. It's a pleasure to be in business with y'all.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget
Thank you. It was awesome.
the Facebook group. You know, ask questions on the Facebook group. Bring up topics that you want to hear in the next session. So be active on our Facebook group.
Which one is the Facebook group?
Mission Control.
Mission Control.
No.
Oh, in Mission Control.
No, it's actually
KWFA investors.
there you go.
Okay. Okay.
KWFA Real Estate Investors.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.